podcast, a space and a place where we talk about everything spiritual, everything cultural, and about social, everyday experiences of us and our people out there. A podcast where you can relate. I'm with my co-hosts.
Dinani.
And Nani and Ambulelo. Before we proceed, guys, this wouldn't have been possible without the contribution of a number of people during December and January and February. So I would like to say thank you to those people that have contributed to the podcast. I can't name you, but you know who you are, and I greatly, greatly appreciate your support financially, and it has made us possible today Squadron podcast. Nabo bebefuna ukundixhasa nto nje iqhosha lami ntombana lanqaba ndiyabulela ndiyabulela intliziyo yenu, it was in the right place. That's all that matters. This is our first episode, hoping for too many ezizawulandela ngoko. Guys, ndifuna ke namhlanje to talk about the signs of spiritual calling. But before we proceed about that, I would like to understand, because all of us have different experiences. What triggered you? Because I believe that there's a trigger. There are those moments in your life whereby they triggered you to go back to your roots. They triggered you to connect with Amandos Wako, or to go back home and find your roots or Somewhere. What are those moments? What are those elements in your life that triggered you guys to realize that, let me learn more about this spirituality?
Do you want to go first? Okay. Smolweni Vietnana. So my first encounter, okay, I wouldn't say this one specifically triggered me. Okay, but I've always had like Christian background, especially umakhulu wami, mama kamama. Wayesiyewesile. And then they're from Tata, I was a Anglican. So na baptism Anglican, but my parents, I wouldn't say they are very religious. But my dad wayengumuntu wesiko, but he never really educated us. But izinto zakhona ezifunekayo wayezenza imbeleko, anything that needed to happen. At some point, my brother wake wagula ngamehlo, bamxhela igusha, and that healed him. But I've never really been curious because so my first encounter, I was born again in 2013 when I was in matric. So when I found the Bible and I was discipled. But then when I went to university, I did courses, more Bali essays and everything like that, and encounter reading. So I came across the Texas Steve Biko. And coming across Texas Steve Biko, that was my first insight into African spirituality, because you can understand, I came from this white Christianity of, understanding God and understanding, the world, good and bad. And then, from being being socialized into that, I always viewed I was taught about your ancestors is idolatry, worshipping ancestors. So I came from low background. But then I think that's good now, is that I'm not religious. So even when I was a Christian, I've always wanted, I didn't just do things for the sake of doing it. It was like a spiritual exercise for me. So that's why I was open to many things. So when I encountered the Texas Gabiko, it was shocking because it was like, we have an African Christianity as well. We have like a Christianity that it relates to, it brings up, it cultivates the values, the African values, and it's not a demonic or a dark thing, so I don't know if I can read it's but how it made me realize the missionaries came and colonized us, and then they gave us their religion, their culture, their Western culture through Christianity, and then they made to African culture, they demonized it and made it something that's dark. So kulapho where my first encounter with Haiman. They scared us with hell. They made into they confined us to places of worship, whereas Tina as African people, we related to Kamata, we related to God. When we are drinking beer, we're drinking beer in reverence to God. Our way of life is seen to our rituals, we're in reverence. So Tina, our religion, our way of relating was not like this confined thing.
Yeah.
You know, it was a spiritual thing. It was like a beautiful African, you know, it was a respect, you know, it was we relating to him in everything that we do. So that was my first encounter. And then the thing that triggered me, I think it was just much later again, like COVID. I was a very religious person going to church, so that was power. And then I encountered someone who would always ask me questions about ancestors, like athi yena uqinisa impepho nempepho imenza aphuphe alale kahle, and you know aphuphe ugrandmother wakhe omncedayo and everything like that. And so nam ke ngoku it made me curious. I watched shows like Ubizo and Ruthless Lamb. I also started dreaming more about my late dad, and then my journey started from there.
No, you remind me of in my first year, I did a course, and in that course, we had readings from Ngugi wa Thiong'o, which is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It's a Kenyan writer and also a professor in one of the U.S. universities. So he was talking about decolonizing the mind and also linking language with identity. Yeah, and at that particular time, obviously, I was not religious, I was not cultural, I was just a person who's living. But obviously, in my own family, they did rituals. So I was not against or not. So even church per se, I was not against the church. So when you talk about the text, you remind me of that decolonization of the mind, and also how then religion or even the Western way of life has always been about demonizing our culture, demonizing the spiritual element of our culture. Because way before the Bible came into existence into Africa, we have always been abantu bomoya in Africa. We have always gone to Zindabeni and we have always prayed for even rain. Now, there is equine rain, for instance, in the history books of Africa. But yeah, you reminded me of London. I don't know, yeah. For me, what triggered me more was Amatong. It was the dreams that I was having. And every dream that I would have, it came into light. Every dream that I have, it came into light. And I started dreaming about people that I don't know. And when I go to my father and explain to him that I've dreamed this old man and he was so and so and so, describing him in great detail, then he will say, no, that's your great grandfather, oh, that's your grandfather, oh, that's your late uncle. And there was not even a picture of those guys, because back in the day, there were few people with cameras. We had to be really privileged to have a camera as a black person. So now, when I describe this dream, my dad knew who they are, and he was shocked. How did I know these people, etc.? What is happening to my dreams? So I started being inquisitive, whereby now I'm researching, I'm talking to people about who is making me have these dreams. Now, from there onwards, I met a guy. I was attending a meeting in politics. I was involved in politics back in my youth. Oh, I'm still youth. Yes, back in my youth. No, I'm a type, but sometimes you feel old. And I'm done. So I met this guy, and he told me one thing that was very new, that before you sleep, you've got to meditate. Close your eyes and meditate, and talk to yourself internally. Because amadlozi, they control the mind, and then they control here, upper valley. So now, this guy taught me to meditate and relax. I meditated and I spoke to myself internally, asking myself those rhetorical questions about who is making me have these dreams. And this old man appeared. He said to me a very interesting thing, because while I was sleeping, I was facing next to the wall. So he said, turn and you will see me. What uthetha ngesixhosa sithi guquka uzandibona. And that had two meanings. I must turn right then and there. I will see him but also it meant I must tend ngokwenyama ndiphile ngokomoya ndenza mbona. So I turned, I saw him, but now it had two meanings because sometimes they speak in poetics. I had to become now a son of mine in order for him or for me to see him daily or to see him the way I'm chilling with you guys. So I was shocked, damn. And that lesson I carried through my healing journey. I remember receiving an inbox from somebody who was in prison at that time, and he wanted my help for a wrongful arrest. So I couldn't even go to prison and visit him. I couldn't do anything. So I said to him, meditate before you sleep. So he was arrested about, I think, for 7 years, something like that. So I said, meditate before you sleep. Close your eyes and talk internally with your guides. Call your late great grandfather, your late grandfather. And he did. That was the first time he dreamed in prison after 7 years.
Wow.
Because Amandos, they control the mind, they control here. Meditating and talking internally. It's not always verbal. So for me, those lessons, those dreams triggered me. Because I wasn't using herbs at that time, I wasn't going to sangomas, but here am I having so much dreams that always they come into reality. Quite a shock, anyway.
Were you not scared all of a sudden just having those dreams?
Well, the moment where I was scared, it was the moment where I realized that, for instance, it's February now. It was a moment where I realized next year in February I'll have to pass. Now I didn't know what will happen, how my life will change. There's no one in the family that was a son that I know I can take a textbook from. So I was scared, how far will my life change, the impact. Hey man, I partied the whole year. Drank almost every day. Yes, the reason was like, if Ataman was being and said, so I must do everything they used to do so that whatever changes isn't young, then I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
But it helped me because I had to stop drinking for about 3 to 4 years. And I was content with myself because I've done everything. Yeah, so there was nothing at all. So for me, I was scared of that. Because I think even most people, it's a stereotype. It's a stereotype. Because the minute you realize you have a calling, you panic. There are people who rather die than accept the calling because of the stereotype. Society has enforced something in the minds of black people, whether they believe or they do not. There's always a perception. You talk about colonialization. So they've been colonized to think in a certain way about spirituality, about Ungoma. To a certain extent now, people they fear Utwas because of that. So that was it.
Sure.
What triggered you? Have you always, because we spoke before, you said you
Yeah, for me, there's nothing specific that I can say triggered me as an adult, but also because in Dikule Kaya, we've always practiced African rituals, we've always observed African spirituality. So even though we are a Christian household, but it's a Christian household that also observes its Africanicity.
But I think you're more privileged than, because I would say for me, you were breastfed into understanding that.
To a certain extent, yes, because some things they don't really practice because they fell away, especially with us. So at least with you guys, so you're more privileged than us.
But the problem,
we don't practice a lot of things, especially because of where we live. So a lot of things they didn't do, but they'd always have umqombothi. Randomly, we'd always yavova, yakhelwa. So I always was exposed to that. But on Sunday, you also be Anglican as well. So on Sunday, you also go to church.
Yeah.
So we always had that balance. But the one thing I appreciated about them is that they never forced. You have to go to church. You have to. We just lived. The only thing they told us, just respect everyone. Everyone you come across, just respect them. Treat everyone with respect. And everything should be fine. But as a child, I was always drawn more to the African spirituality of things. So at church I would go, for me it was a musical festival. Like I love ingoma. I really love music. So for me, church was all about the music. Whenever they preach, yeah, you know. So whenever they would preach certain things, as a child I didn't know anything, but in my teenage years, there would be certain things abashumela ngazo, and you're like, this doesn't sit well with me. You know, the whole do not more path worshipping Amadimo and all of those things. So for me, I was very conflicted, but luckily because the Kaya, they were never so staunch into you need to be this Anglican child. I was able to dabble into a lot of things, but I was always guided as well. Like a lot of things as a child, I knew things people didn't know somehow. So I've always been on some.
You were that kind of woman that would
and the shocking thing is, Ekaya, so well, unfortunately we lost him last year. But as a child I always would ask, Ubani Jesu? I'm like, no, that's okay, Ubani Tito. And then abazali bakaThixo baphuma kuphi? And we're like, yo, we don't question. We don't question godly things, just take the Bible as it is, believe in your heart, and that's it. So certain things I couldn't ask, even though I was curious as a child, but I couldn't ask. So as an adult then my curiosity grew. Because now I'm having these dreams and things are happening. There's voices telling me, I do something. There's a voice telling me, go check there. You'll find, like one time, a distant family member came to visit. I don't know if I should share but she stole something, right? And there's a beautiful pen my aunt gave me, and I couldn't find that pen while she was visiting us. And there's a voice that just said, "Fully bag and I opened her bag and I found my pen. Unfortunately, the voice kept saying, open her bag. So I only opened the small compartment, only to find that the rest of her bag had my aunt's CDs and clothes and everything. So also that guiding voice that's always, your intuition. And we don't listen because for me now, like, I found my pen. Now if she catches me, but I've always known things. I would see things that people don't see. So, but as an adult, obviously being exposed to social media, being more free to go to certain places, and I started exploring.
You touch on something in one thing when we're a black person, I don't care how long have you been saved in terms of Christianity, when we're a black person, there are certain songs that are cultural. It's new, I'm that. No, I attended a wedding, I think it was 3 years back, I'm not sure. A friend of mine is saved, but the minute Satula Lango and Chatwin, Yapaka because Langoma, it touches the soul of your blackness. There's something that moves within you to show you that your soul is spiritual, your soul is African spiritual. Yeah, it relates to everybody. And so for me, ingoma, and abanye is spirituality sabo. It's not a spirituality when you talk about the calling, for instance. We're not talking about only Mungoma, African healing. We're also talking about music as well. It's part and parcel of African spirituality. Abanye abantu abagidi but bayacula. So but when there's always this theory in society about the religion side and the African spirituality as hlangana. And abanye abantu babona umngoma ephinde prophet. Abanye bade criticize. There was a video circulating umuntu emokha izangoma ezisebenzisa i-candles kubayena enesintu. And umlandu leyana, I don't know, it's some kind of information wrong, propaganda, because African spirituality is sintu sethu. It's not against the Bible. It's not against Christianity. It's not against the Muslim. It's very accommodative. But the problem is we have been too accommodative to an extent that siyadelelwa, to an extent that we bow down in everything. So noba into it has nothing to do with religion, but soloko siyifaka religion, soloko siyifaka. Abanye abantu, in order to be accepted in society, they have to firstly identify themselves as Christians before they identify themselves as Lendo, African. There's nothing wrong in believing in Muslim without infusing in Christianity. There's nothing wrong in infusing Christianity in Muslim or taking Christianity. But probably have been too accommodative. I think la element to Ubuntu. But the African spirituality, I don't know your take, but I believe it's not discriminating when it comes to inkolo Christianity as an.
Yeah, now my take is I think I like to just distinguish between religion and spirituality on its own because I feel like when you are a religious person, your kingdom is just don't do this, don't do that, like commandments. There's no gray area. And then when it comes to spirituality, that's when if you're like identify as someone who's spiritual, that's where you can embrace many other perspectives. That's where now you won't have a problem with Umtu who practices Buddhism. You'll find commonalities instead with those people. Like as an African, I find commonalities with Christianity. So as just a spiritual person, I just accept Uti, there's God, and God reveals himself to people in different ways. So I just choose to say I'm not a religious person. Because if I'm a religious person, you'll call Lord by I must go to church in Tawe, Kanyang in Tawe, Utiko Ngumbe, like Gobi, Ifu, Ndiasela, Bukinga, Ineze, Imbenkul, So I just choose to let it be a journey, let my spirit connect to the source and let me understand God. However he chooses to reveal himself to me. So I like identifying as a spiritual person. That way I embrace all religions. I embrace whatever language God chooses to express himself in.
But also, Lando, there are people who find healing in ZCC. There are people who find healing in St. John's. There are people who find healing in any other church.
Yeah.
But there are people who find healing when there's a sin.
Isn't it also, sorry to cut you off, but isn't it also because when you look at things like texts like the Bible and the Quran, they're very rooted in African spirituality. A lot of the practices that are on there, it's things that we do. I would sit Anglican, they would first, Amakosa would come near incense. And
I once saw that incense before.
They'd be sitting there and like, come on the stage, But I was always curious with why are they doing that? And Ekaya, my grandparents would just be like, no, we just do that at church. They didn't know why. They just knew which it's done.
Exactly.
And then but when you get to understand, you're purifying the space, you're opening up the spiritual portals. That's what they're doing. Before the preacher they come and they do that, they're purifying the space and they're opening it up. Already everything is set. So a lot of things, there's a text, I'm not very versed in the Bible, but I know because somebody likes making fun of it. There's a part that says Moses was kulila lizimbada taza kulinga wa imwe. Moses won't get into being. You don't come in with your shoes because it's a holy place. Why? Because those shoes, when you're telling every other unholy place you're carrying so much energy just by the sole of your shoes. So if you're going to enter that holy place that is purified, you need to take off your shoes, leave them outside, come into the holy place. Carry those energies from outside so that you can receive your. So the same fire that we used in the olden days is the same fire that we're using now, currently in Christianity, in the form of candles. So it's not Oguti, the healers that are using candles today, by from Christianity. It stems from the fire that our forefathers used to use. Like the Khoisan, for example, the females, they would have a ritual. I'm not sure what the ritual is called, but they'd have a healing ritual where the males would be around a fire and the females would pass out. They would transform, or rather, they would go into the spiritual world. When they come back, they know that Unani, this is what's ailing her, and they would use that fire to heal you. So we've been using fire, but now we can't. I can't it's impossible.
Yeah.
Hence the translation into candles that we're using. So Christianity and our African spirituality is actually more the same than it is different. But what has always interested me quite recently is how people are always talking about having a calling. That is what I'm interested in. Yes, and everyone is complaining with it. No, everyone has a calling. Everyone has. What is this calling for you guys?
Umuntu uyakwazi uba ne-calling, but doesn't mean that funeke ethwasile. Umuntu uyakwazi uba ne-calling and abone ngokomoya, but uhamba namadlozi. But it doesn't mean funeke ethwasile. Abanye ke ngabantwana besingxobo, andisazi besingxobo ndisilibele kodwa ngesilungu, but abanye ngabantwana besingxobo, and fumanisa uba njengomntana wasingxobo nje uyabona, just like somebody on a calling, but yena is not meant umzekelo athwase. And there's different types of calling. We can't always assume umuntu ayibonayo simbokse to ubungoma, simbokse to isithungo. That's where the problem is. That's why now you see abantu, they go by uthwasa quick, because umuntu uya kwesangoma, aye kwesangoma, calling, into zakho zawulungiseka ngosithwasa, uma thwase, into zakhe zimoshakala. But that person was not meant to thwasa to begin with. Omnye, yes, he was meant to thwasa, but it was not yet the right time. Because just because of, it's like, for instance, a boy at 14 years of age, a Xhosa boy, knows that at 18 is going to go to initiation school, or at 19.
Yeah.
Just because of he knows that information at 14, it doesn't mean he has to do that at 14. So just because of you are aware today, through a consultation that I'm calling, it doesn't mean that it is yet time. It means you have to mature, the ideas to mature within you. You've got to communicate now. So, but there's different types. Because even musicians have a calling.
Yes.
Now, the thing is with musicians, we have seen a number of musicians where I will not mention, some doing interviews saying that, no, I got the song Ingoma Kumiyazizela from my soul, sometimes from my great grandfather, or my grandmother, for instance. Those guys have a calling for music. But now, where the problem lies, if those guys, they do not do things as Jablis Amando Zwabo, service Amando Zwabo, they might never make hits. Because this person who's making you dream songs, then you write those songs, needs to be serviced. Some music to write tracks needs to be serviced. If you do not service Liliana, then you will never in your life write hits. Probably will write 1 or 2 hits, then you are done. But you will write songs and continue to sing, but you will never, because of this gift you have from it was Lako Yokuya. I was bullying like Roselia will bomb. You don't even, I was still not sitting on.
And I think I've heard with the soil,
I've had an interview from Unzika about the soil, I think, but Bush and Sangam apparently. But I've had interview Kanzika and see to know when as that's a calling, that's a musical calling.
But you can always tell by how, when you're listening to a song, there's certain musicians who transform you. Or they'll just take you to this spiritual space. And there are musicians who sing, but it's just words, it's just nice words. And you move to the beat. But when you feel it, you can tell that this person is singing from a different plane.
Because there's language with Tina. Elinye was about gifted in business. Then once you become business minded. But the way you are in business, it is different from somebody who went to business school.
That is true.
Yeah, it's like being a lawyer. There are people who are gifted in law. It's a talent. There are people who have studied law. So there's a difference between a lawyer that is gifted in law and a lawyer that is calling a law. There's a difference between a lawyer that is just a professional lawyer who studied. But there's a difference between somebody who studies law but is gifted. Land is the same as farming. Back in the day, Abazalbe too used to farm. When you're calling it farming, you want to do farming. And when you go into the space of farming, you find peace in it. Your calling is there.
I think that's also why you find that a lot of people that are working office jobs are so unhappy. Because they're in spaces that they're not supposed to be
True.
in. And they're not succeeding because they're in a space that they're not supposed to be in.
Abanye ke bafika ezofisini bakhule ehlanga. Ubantu baziyahlisa.
That's me.
What is the economy in fact? That's the question. Because everybody will calling. Calling lubizo labantu abadala, lubizo lamadlozi. Calling is something you are gifted with. But in the context of this conversation, the idea of a calling is an ancestral calling whereby your ancestor is living through you. Your ancestor is making you have dreams. Your ancestor is guiding you. Some people will say you have a guiding angel that is working with you. So the instincts, the dreams, the intuition, it's that ancestor speaking through you. Yeah. So the calling lubizo labantu abadala libizela into zomoya. That is a calling. Now the difference here is those who practice, those who accept the calling, the ancestral calling, and those who do not. Those who practice and those who do not. Just because of you have a calling, it doesn't mean you're not passive. But a calling, to summarize, I would say, lubizo labantu abadala bakubizela imisebenzi yabo. So part of imisebenzi yabo, it is to help somebody. It is to heal somebody. Not only with bones, not only with umuthi is washo, but mainly talking to somebody. Because some people, they find healing in your tongue. They find comfort in your wisdom. They find comfort in the advices you give them. That is why some people, they vent away. They cry away. You become that shoulder to cry on. That's a calling. That is servicing. That calling you are getting from your guides, from your guiding angels, from your ancestors. So the calling lubizo labantu abadala. Abanye abantu, they are fine with carrying on servicing their calling through having therapeutic sessions with friends and other people. That's my idea of a calling.
What do you do with this calling, or how else are you gonna know how to handle the calling?
That's the thing, and that is where people get lost. And that is where people find they feel like they're confused. What do I do with this calling? Because of you don't know anything. You need a mentor.
Because I feel like I'm in that boat. I know I have a calling. It's like, what do I do with it? I do get messages. I can't define it. It's not as clear cut as saying no, because this calling is no.
Yes.
I'm not low path. But then there's bonuses in it, but I don't know how to use it. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. Are they happy? Or who has to do something?
Yes. Yeah, well, to answer you in several terms, I think we've watched as well superhero movies, whereby this young child discovers new powers. But he doesn't know how to harness his powers, control his powers.
Yes.
There's a series on Netflix, Raising Dion. So a calling, a gift, you will never know on your own how to navigate. You need to get somebody who's experienced. Either that person should mentor you, or that person should guide and advise you on how to handle, navigate, and exercise your calling daily. That's when you'll find the direction, and also understanding even your dreams. But I'm against the idea whereby, because of your calling, when you go to a consultation, but twice.
And they're telling everyone.
That's the problem. That's the problem, because you don't need to twice at the beginning. It needs to manifest. It needs to mature. Like it would want you mature the calling yako, you book it now by Zako, then you will know. Because when you want to say about twice, some about one in like a long cobble. And in same we like poop. No gobela should give you in Zimbi Zangwai poop. In Zimbi when I cook when you poop.
okanye athi umuntu othwasa naye ukhuphele ngentsimbi.
It doesn't work that way.
Ukhuphe unxibe izambatho
No.
ezimhlophe, unxibe iintsimbi ezithile.
But the problem,
But I think
Glenn, sorry to cut you, how do you justify it? Let's say ndingumzali wakho, you come to me ndibuza ezi ntsimbi uzinxibileyo wawuzithatha phi, wawuzibone phi? Uthi hayi ifriend yam okanye ubani undikhuphele. How do you trust iphupha lomnye umntu? Because people can lie ngamaphupha. That's why abanye oogqibela baza kuthi no ndiphuphe kuthiwa funeka unditshate. Uzamtshata? Iphupha likakho likuwe. So why is it any different? Because we need to get to a space whereby we critique, we question, we use our rationality, our logic.
But also, I think people are scared of questioning izinto zomoya. They're very scared. And I like how you're saying, how you mentioned which you don't have to twice and you have a calling. Because that's also what's scaring abantu. You find which people want to hold on to whatever lifestyle they're living. Now they think which their life is going to be uprooted because they need to buy kit and all of that, only to find which they just need to heal their bloodline. And that's all. So if you're calling in terms of where now you just need to heal your bloodline, everything is fine and you move on with life.
Yeah, and before we get into the next part, also the issue of a calling. It's because there are things sometimes they happen to us when we grow up. Mhlawumbi saloya bathwana izinto zethu zivalekile but bathi bale nee-roots zefamily. Part of amadlozi mayesondela kuwe akubonisa izinto ezisuka from the roots. And mhlawumbi this calling you are getting, it is to fix your life in the mess that it is in. Nobody, no other sangoma will be able to do that. It's you who's supposed to. Yeah. But again, yeah.
But what if amaphupha akho awacaci? Because andithi nantsi enye into eveske ibe like peer pressure ukuthi this one amaphupha wakhe they are so clear cut uba okay yenza le nale nale nale, or amadlozi are actually communicating bathi bafuna ukwenzelwa into ethile. And then when you are seeing things and they are kind of vivid, they're not that vivid, they're vague. Ingathi uzama ukudibanisa ke ngoku. So ke ngoku ufike ke ngoku kunaloo delay and then uphinde une-anxiety uba I'm supposed to be doing something but andazi uba ntoni funeke ndiyenze. Ndinqena ke ngoku no-consulta because lo uthetha le, and then ke ngoku you in this space whereby you're very confused and spiritual child.
Yeah, but the issue now of dreams, not everybody dreams in the same manner. Some xa they dream cartoons, they dream drawings. It's how it was like communicates. Some people they dream direct things. Some they dream umtshato kuthiwa ifuneral kuthiwa ngumtshato. Some dreams are poetic. But it happens to the best of us. That there will be times when you forget your dreams, when your dreams do not make sense. It's normal. But also it means you should always, noba uhlamba ngomuntu okanye meditator okanye uhlamba ngesiwasho sakowenu, ngesilawu sakowenu for instance, igobongo lakowenu, you will find something, but the minute you forget your dreams, it's a sign that you need to purify your body. It doesn't mean go and do cleansing. Take things that you can mix together, whatever somebody advises you to. Imuthi steam. Mna ndazi kweli cala lokuXhosa apho each and every household kwaXhosa inesilawu sayo. Esa silawu we call it igobongo ke for abantwana. Ungazothusisisa. So now umuntu makathathe isilawu sakhe wabahlamba afuthi okanye aye esibayeni sakwabo. Even nohlamba nje ngokulongo esebayeni umgquba. Awuthatha uhlamba ngomgquba. Boom. Izinto zakho zingakhilela amaphupha wakho. So, but yeah, anyway, what do you do when the dreams are vague? You don't know how to connect with them. Get somebody who knows how to interpret. I can interpret it. Because the issue of dreams, we will never know on how to interpret them. Reach out to people about interpreting them. Simple as that. The different types of calling. Some people are gifted beyond your normal practice. Some people are gifted in terms of career-wise. You have somebody who studied law, and then somebody who is gifted in law, who has a talent in law. There's a difference there. It's like in business, somebody can go to a business school and study business and excel. But there's somebody who is gifted in business. So even if that person studies the same course, but you will see the difference. So someone will have a calling of being a nurse, for instance. Somebody will have a calling of being a doctor. Somebody will have a calling yomculo. Yeah, especially in musicians. There have been some musicians in the past whereby they come out in interviews and say, "Now I dream about the songs I write." Some will even say, "No, my great grandfather, my grandfather gives me these lyrics."
Like with the soil.
Like with the soil, yes. I think Unziga has mentioned Londoleo in one of his interviews that Yapupa. But now the difference is, when you're gifted in music, you need to service Eladros, so you need to do something for Eladros, whether or whatever comes to your mind or comes to your family's mind, whatever the case is. Because the minute you do not service Eladros, the Negatas Laros, you will never make a hit. Or you will be a one-hit wonder because of you have failed to pump in that channel that gives you that pipe that feeds your creativity. But yes, you will write songs, you will continue to write songs, but they will always be average because of you have failed to acknowledge that was you have failed to service that was through spiritual means. And there are various factors where you can service that was not through language only. Yeah. Even for instance, even not it depends, but lifuna.
Like that one dancer celebrity who's always having rituals for his ancestors. His career is booming. So something like that. But you're saying, you're saying something like how his career continues to move from pillar to pillar. Yes, it's because of that also.
Kaloku idlozi liyathanda ukutshwa and xa ungakuzwanga libuya umva. Yeah. So also when it comes to now the ancestral calling, there are various types as well, like Istunwa, which is more religious based. Umdawa, there's Abelozi, there's Umdiki, there's Umguni. Those are different types. And for us healers, we can spot by how you wearing your beads or the color of your beads you wearing. By okay, when Umdiki, when Umdawa, when Abelozi, etc., when Nestunwa. All they are symbolized in the beads or the regalia you wear. For instance, it's basic when it comes to Stunya because Maunaso, even Nezambato the tower. So that church regalia, you need to go to Tunsayo, Abtungele, with the advice of the prophet, then before you program Islam, the manzin and all that stuff. That's the basic office to either for Panakanjela, when you put a tower in, when you put a Zamato. Yeah, so there are different types even in So it's important when you discover your spirituality and understand that you're calling to know what type of calling do you have. So that part is very important. Because I've seen abantu who is not meant to athwasa umndalo. But the problem is uye kwisangoma esinomndalo. Samthwasisa umndalo. Kanti laa mntu bekufuneke alungiselelwe ngokwesithunywa qha. But the problem is, esangoma ekuso asinasithunywa. So as understand the elements esithunywa. So sibhoxa in kule party siyenzayo. Then ke into zakho zimoshakala. And I've seen abanye umuntu abenesithunywa nomndalo. Now xa unesithunywa nomndalo, you firstly service isithunywa sakho, then ulandele ngomndalo. Funeka sihambelane elaa hlobo. Otherwise isithunywa saba nesikhwele. Okanye umndalo zaba nesikhwele. Funeka uzibalansise uqale ngesithunywa. But yeah, it's a topic for another day. But my point is, abanye omnye umuntu can go to a prophet. And the type is calling yakhe. It's not isithunywa, it's umndalo. The prophet imsize, imanzele isithunywa and all that stuff can then cause above njani. So abanye they not having their current jobs, and their calling was in farming. Amadlozi wakhe lo muntu had livestock, had plants, had herbs ensimini, for instance. So the calling is umuntu funeka ahambe olima. So now when I'm an office job, you will never be happy. There's always a void. Some calling Yabuba place, let's say to a Methodist, but when they go to another church, and the spirit sabbath restless, a single one, until I reach the church, I'll be calling it needs to be Sabbath. Abanya they are just selling, like the video I posted, they are just selling. In certain things, they need to move so that they grow that calling. They're just selling in church, or they're just selling in this group of musicians, or they're just selling in this career of electrical engineer, and you need to move and go somewhere else where your soul will be happy. Because when your soul is happy, Israel's Lako is happy. Israel's Lako is intertwined with your soul.
So then we would say, we need to make sure our spirituality and our careers are aligned.
Yes.
For us to find peace there.
To find internal peace.
So that we don't have bullies in the office.
But also at the same time, besides those bullies that are micromanaging, damn, I will West. But also, but also you can have a good job and make as much money as you can. But are you depressed in doing that? Do you feel a void? Do you feel like you don't belong here? Then those are your answers where you need to move and change environment.
So in that situation, then what would you do? Do you meditate and ask? I might as well for ask.
You can ask, but the answer is yes, you can ask, but the answer is within you. It's within your spirit. Because even if you ask somebody, you can't ask somebody, am I happy or am I not happy? You know when you're not happy. Now the question is, what will make you happy? What resonates with Moya Wako?
If you're not sure.
Then you need to dive
deep in
your subconscious. Because a man can never give you that answer if you do not know. You need to know yourself, and then you communicate with them and say, I want to do this. For instance, you mentioned teaching, I want to teach.
Okay. Because the reason why I'm asking that is because I've seen a lot of people would use Amanduzi as a crutch to say, but they're not showing me, so I can't do anything.
But what is that person doing in order because we have people who are not doing anything to service themselves, to be aligned in Amadozwago, to connect now, because we have a responsibility as humans to purify ourselves so that the channel of communication of the people in life after death can be easy.
Okay.
So you do not purify yourself, but your expectations, you expect Amadozi to tell you and show you and guide you. Your expectations are perfect.
I'm waiting for my 134 million lot. I don't even play.
And now we passionate you need to play and be passionate.
I'm waiting for the feeling. But I suppose also it goes back to how Christianity has taught us to wish our lives away. Like we just believe in miracles. If I pray, things are going to happen. If I just pray. But we're not doing anything, because if you look at a lot of black Christians, they're not really succeeding in that.
Because on your own now, with what you're saying, on your own will say, you will tell them what in a street, and I'm going to pray. But as a street talk, it means your body is dirty. When your body is dirty, you don't pray to be clean. You go and take a shower. So it's impossible for a street to suit to clean your body by just merely praying. Then I can pray not to be clean while I can take a shower. And not take a shower for 7 days, just pray to be clean. So illogically to sometimes I don't know illogic about it.
But how do you purify yourself?
You steam.
Okay.
You do cleansing. You bath, food, I
think we need to do a topic on that.
Yeah.
So now, would you say it's important to know where your calling comes from?
It's important to know where your calling comes from. The basic understanding of a calling. We have a father and a mother. And in African spirituality, but not all the time, It's not a gospel. But if you were born emtshatweni, mostly uzawuhamba namadlozi wakulobaba. If you were born outside umtshato, ungumntana wentombi, uzawuhamba amadlozi azawudominata ngawakulomama. It's very seldom and rare kudominate awakulotata kodwa angumntana womtshato. It happens. That's why I'm saying it's not the gospel. So that's your first premise, your first basis. Where do guys get it wrong? Even as a cross, umntana wentombi afune ukulungela kutata, afune ukwenza imisebenzi kutata because of he feels he'll be manly enough, he's doing the right thing. And no, he's spitting in the face of amadlozi wakulomama.
What if usebemhlawulele?
Kaloku ukuhlawula doesn't mean that you belong to that.
Yo.
Ukuhlawula, inhlawulo, it's paying for damages that we've done. You went esibayeni sakho wenu ndaphula ibele. So now, xa use ungeyontombi into, it means even ezaa nkomo zelobola, it's not gonna be the same. So meaning esibayeni sakho wenu ndowuthatha iinkomo zikatata wakho ndazixutha mhlawumbi eziyi-4 ngoku uzawufumana kwilobola iinkomo eziyi-3.
Sure.
So paying for damages is not an entitlement to change one is surname. It's not an entitlement to belong there. You still umntana wakulobani kulo mama wakho.
But I think with that, we would have to have a whole episode just to
Yes, no,
dissect everything.
just dissect. But I know in the Zulu culture and other cultures,
that goes
it's permitted. It's permitted.
Not in Xhosa.
NgesiXhosa, nah.
But now going back to equaling, would you say Ruti, there is your God-given gift, right? Like your God-given spiritual gift that you inhabit as a person, outside of amadlozi wako, and then they come and add on to what you already have. Because the person who's not spiritually inclined wouldn't attract lawo madlozi lawo.
Everybody namadlozi.
No, I'm saying lawo kulapha, because that's what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
So would you say Ruti, you would have to have a spiritual calling that is your own God-given calling that's edified by amadlozi wako?
I'm not sure I get you, but for me, that God-given calling gamadlozi, wow. But
I think it's the understanding.
I think it's the understanding because not everybody knows look lapha. But even if I know look lapha, it doesn't mean about the calling anayo. I assume
It's not God. It's not God-given. Yeah.
Yes. But okay, like
or maybe I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not putting it correctly. Maybe not God-given, but your own individual gift. Like Mina is Unombulelo, this is my gift, right? And because everyone is born with their own set yamadlozi to make sure to you fulfill this life purpose of yours, they also jump onto this. That's why you would get them asking Uti, this and that, because I never finished while I was alive. And you find different types of amadlozi coming in and saying, I'm gifting you with this gift because it's what they used to do.
Yes.
So they edifying onto what I have.
Oh, okay.
So my own individual gift might be ukuluma. And then ugogo comes and says, on top of ukuluma, yes, you can mix herbs.
No, they do that.
And heal this person. I feel umkul. I said, no, by drumming. You can also heal this person. So can we not say there's our own individual gifts that are edified by amadlozi?
No, there is. Definitely there is. They do capitalize on that. They do.
Which is very interesting. Then we can be superheroes.
I think now moving on.
We can
Science eye.
Yeah.
That's how we to the science of the calling. Abanye abantu, I think, yeah. Because one of the signs, because how do I know I'm calling? Because one of the signs you are alone. Sometimes you prefer to buy a room and yeah. And sometimes there's a little bit of depression and anxiety. That anxiety ends what?
Yeah. Is it just like when closer to the time that your calling wants to kick in?
Okay. Because remember, the time you realize at this age that you have a calling, when you connect the dots, you realize that no man, my behavior from when I was a child up until now, it has been always kind of suspicious.
So is that more like it was luxus ebantwini nje, like it just wants to be alone?
And lifuna ukufumana alone.
Mm.
Xa lisusa ebantwini. And sometimes kula relationship problem, amadoda awahlali, even a woman asihlali. Yeah, and understand son, and especially the unendlozi elingumuntu ongutata. Then either you'll attract the submissive guys, or guys guys who understand, and then go to
Ooh, guys, can we pack that? In South Africa, it's a shower, so can we pack it?
No,
and just have a day where we discuss because wow, yes, she's.
Abanye abantu baba ne-problem phantsi kweenyawo. Umfana kweenyawo ziyarhawuzelela. Funeka egidile. There's a difference now kweenyawo kazirhawuzelela naxa ngathi uhlatywa zinaliti. Andithethi xa ungathi uhlatywa zinaliti. Ndayiphatha ibhasla ndiyibeke ecaleni. But le yorhawuzelela kweenyawo phantsi kweenyawo zakho ziyakuthuthezelela. Then ke bafuna ugidela hlobo. Abanye bava a sound in the ear iringa. Iba ngathi ibhabhathana. Iba ngathi there's a butterfly. So when I remember when I felt that sound of a butterfly in my ear, you know, the old generation will say, pour some oil into that ear. Hey, I put some fish oil, it didn't have.
I've been putting chicken oil as well.
No.
Before you spice the chicken, take the oil.
Some people, they hear whistles. Some people, they hear the sound of the ocean. Some people, they smell the sound of it. They smell the ocean.
It's like things that are is blocked.
Yes.
So I think, like, because it's not like I have or I'm hearing anything. It's like it's blocked. Let's content but I did home.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's one of those signs. There are plenty of signs depending on an individual. Omni will dream water, will dream animals, will dream being at school. Omni will dream and in the sense of Abatrosa, the initiation school of the Xhosa boys when they go the passage. So you will dream in the bush, the white ochre, which is in shop. So you have to depend about and Funuba specific. And Funubuti, how goes the school and means the quality. No, not all the time. It depends on the context of people. But those are just some general things as a That's it for the signs of the calling. Yeah.
But you know, it's very interesting how some of these signs they present themselves as medical conditions, like how you're saying, then your mom will forever be taking you to the doctor.
You're medical aid running out. And especially as it's very sad because students, when you're doing first year or second year, a lot of students are depressed. And some of them are calling, but they do not know. And about Zali, Baba, with psychiatrists, with therapists. Then the problem with that, if umzali wakho doesn't understand equality, uzakusaba bagqirha nabo psychologist. You'll never get out.
So with that said, I suppose the only way to confirm that you do have a calling would also to be confirmed by a healer. Like to
not necessarily, but all the signs are happening to you, but you just don't know what they are, what they mean.
But now how do you confirm which these are signs of a calling?
Well, you need to go to somebody who's a healer or a prophet or somebody who has been there or who knows.
Or what if we are pasha and then somebody?
If you are pasha, they can clarify. They can clarify that you do have it. But sometimes ungalinda ukuza kancane. Upasha or just ungalinda ukuza kancane. Ulinda style.
So for a normal person out there, they had suggested it's just to confirm.
Just
and then come back and speak to their ancestors and say, Umkulu, this and that. Is it true? You know, please confirm for me.
Yes.
But not one.
No, not only one. And definitely when you go and confirm, do not jump in your twice. Come back at home and say, and light your candles, whatever you do, your ritual, and say, I'm coming from home, do you guys agree?
But I think that is very important because abantu ababoniswa ngokufana uthole ukuthi a certain calling to you presents itself as if lo muntu kungakwamele ukuthi ayothwasa, and they go to somebody else and they're like, no, this is what you're supposed to do. So I think it's a good idea to actually go to another.
No, definitely. But I think for today we've covered
A lot.
We've covered a lot. Guys, it was our first episode, and I would like to give thanks actually. It's Lung Sabale. I would like to give thanks to those guys who have been watching this episode, and also even for me, subscribe and do share the video and do put some comments. It's our first video, and yeah, I think we're nervous a little bit. So I think we'll improve as time goes by. But ngiyabulela kakhulu ngibamba ngazo zozibini. And to my co-host, thank you guys for the engagement. I think we'll see each other next time in the second episode. Bye guys. Take care.